Hello everyone and welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're doing good and well. So it's time for an album review this Wednesday, and this time I'm tackling the second album from the band Illumishade, titled Another Side of You, which came out last week on Friday the 16th of February via Napalm Records, and the album is 14 tracks and just under an hour in length. So in this band you've got two band members from Helvetii, and those being Fabienne Ernie on the vocals and the piano, and you also have Jonas Wolf here on guitars as well. And if anyone asked me to describe this album to them, I'd say it has both the presence and mood of a fantastic stage musical, and combine that with that modern down-tuned guitar sound as well, and you have something like Illumishade's album here, Another Side of You. And yet, describing or using that description of this band doesn't feel like it does this band any kind of justice whatsoever, because this is I think, a brilliant album. And yes, there are lots of modern metal bands out there bringing in other styles and genres into their brands of metal. But this band, I think, have done it in such a way which makes the contrasts work so well, and so well done together, both in the context of the whole album and within each individual song as well, that you barely notice the contrasts as they're happening, that it almost feels like a natural marriage of an unlikely couple of that, as I say, that down-tuned modern metal style with these uplifting, soaring, almost Disney-like moments throughout this album in the vocal department particularly. And on that note, I have to say Fabienne Ernie delivers an absolutely stellar, flawless vocal performance from the very beginning of this album to the very end, as she negotiates through the pop and modern metal sensibilities of this record with absolute consummate, unerring ease. You also have an absolutely splendid guitar performance as well from Jonas Wolf, who similarly has a brilliant, flawless performance, I think, on the guitars in this album, providing an interesting, as I say, an unusual counterpoint to those melodic, soaring vocal moments from singer Fabienne as well. All packed together, this album is something of a masterpiece, and it's the kind of masterpiece that could have very easily passed me by had I not decided to give this one a shot and a chance, not knowing the band other than, you know, a couple of the band members because they're from Helvetii, and realising that this is one of those albums that's going to be probably quite high up on my year-end list now, because it really is like just quite something, I think, quite something unique. As I say, despite having familiar elements in it, it's the way it makes all the elements work so well, bouncing off one another or working in tandem together. It's quite, I think it's a really good album. I don't think I'm exaggerating. So the songs on this album, let's go through some of these, some of my favourites. Elegy, with its slow swaying groove and wonderful chorus. And I'm going to be repeating some of these things again as I go from track to track here. Cloud Reader, which has an amazing modern pop chorus with little instrumental nuances that I think keep it interesting as well at the same time, and it's just such an effective track for what it is, one of the more memorable ones for me that I have going around in my head after I've listened to the album. Cyclone is a heavy, moody, epic and darker track on this album, which is followed up by a totally different kind of track, which is called Fairy Tale, and this is the best Disney song that you've never heard, or at least that's what I think it sounds like. It's an absolutely incredible vocal performance on this song, again from Fabienne, who reaches these high notes, which provides possible spine-tingling moments on this particular song. You have Hymn, which is another absolutely fantastic track with similar themes as what I've said with the other songs, of having all those little highlights in the great verses, choruses, melodies, and interesting sort of heavier moments as well in that song. Riptide is one of the heaviest tracks on the album and probably my favourite, not necessarily for that reason, but it has an unusual chorus in this song, which is a little different from any others in the album, and it's where I wish I knew a bit more musical theory so I could adequately describe exactly what Fabienne does in this chorus. But I think it's where she's singing Let It Reach Over You, and it just sounds very different to anything else on the album, but it really just stands out on this album in the best way possible. And it's a really interesting track to have towards the end of the album, and to keep you absolutely in the whole journey of this record from front to back. That leaves my score for this one, and it's going to be very, very high. I am very, very close to giving this a perfect 10 score. This album has absolutely stunned me because it's just kind of come out of the blue. and I'm giving this a 9.5 out of 10. There's one track on here which is a 2-minute track that comes between, I think it's between Fairy Tale and Him, and it just doesn't quite, for me, it's not really needed. You know, you've had Fairy Tale, which is a beautiful, slow, melodic track, followed up by Him, and I just don't feel like that 2-minute breather is even really necessary. It's quite a long album if you think about it, but that's literally the only thing I can nitpick, because there's nothing else to nitpick. There are no nits to pick. This album is a 9.5 out of 10. Hope you enjoyed this review. Do drop a like and a sub if you've enjoyed this review, if you like this kind of content. Don't forget, I also do rankings lists. We have Symphonic Sundays going strong at the moment with interviews, chats and rankings on that series, all about symphonic metal. And we have horror and fantasy content on the way too, with a fantasy book review and more horror content coming very soon too. So thanks everyone for watching as always. Until next time, bye for now.